Welcome back to the fourth module of the week 1 topic, which is on understanding meaning of performance management and reward systems management with performance management process. I hope by now you have pondered on our last week's question on whether performance management is related to reward management, and if yes, then how. Like what kind of performance with what kind of reward. Do reward really help to like increase the performance, or in some cases it may act as hindrances also. So, I hope by now you have thought on these questions and you have got your answers for it, and if you have so, please write back to us and we are going to share our experiences with you. Now, in this module we are going to discuss on the prerequisites for a performance management process and the performance management process as such. Now, when we are talking of prerequisites for a performance management process, so it is very important to discuss on these prerequisites. See, because if we think of like we will be following the or introduce the system of performance management in the organization, then it is not something that we can do it overnight. So, it has to be very well planned, pre-thought, and like lot of thinking has to go inside it. So, it has its own prerequisites. So, before we talk of the performance management process and introducing of a performance management system in the organization, so we will first discuss about the prerequisites of the performance management system. The first prerequisite about the performance, introducing a performance management system in the organization, is the knowledge of the organization's vision, mission and goals of an organization, and also the knowledge regarding the jobs. So, let us discuss in details about these two topics. When we talk of the knowledge of the organization's vision, mission and goals, so we need to understand these three terms very clearly. When we talk of the organization's vision, it is where the vision is of an organization is where the organization sees itself in the long run. So, it is a future oriented thing, like from now how do I project on where I will be, where I want to see myself in future. A mission is like what for an organization exists. So, it is like more on the values of the organization. So, what is the purpose for what I exist, and like what I in the present what I am there. So, what I can do with what I am supposed to do about it. And goals are strategic objectives established by the company's management to outline expected outcomes and guide employees' effort. So, when you talk of goals, goals are strategic objectives established by the company's management to outline expected outcomes and guide employees' effort. So, setting of proper goal for the organization is also very important, because if the goals are not set properly, what I want to achieve and what are my expectations from my employees, then I cannot guide the efforts of my employees. Now, why these are important? So, why these are important? Because when we talk of, there is always an interplay between the vision, mission and strategic planning of the organization. If I do not understand what I want to become in future, then I cannot plan ahead. If I do not understand what is the purpose for my existence, and like what is the philosophy which is guiding me, then it is very difficult to choose again a future vision, like where I want to be. So, where I want to be is a progressive growth in terms of like where I am there at present and what I want to become in future. It is a point of decision of change also. Do I want to continue to be what as I am presently, or I need to change myself in terms of the my business, my identity that I have? Do I need to bring in any transformational changes also? So, all these will be guided by when I understand what are my vision and mission, and obviously the based on that the goal setting. Like if I have to translate my vision into a reality and move forward with a mission, then what are the goals that I need to achieve? And then if I have to these are the objectives which are when you talk of vision and mission, these are statements which expresses our like thought processes. Mission is more guide, it's more like when you talk of mission, it is more well written in terms of yes, for these purposes I exist. And but when you talk of goals, these are again more doable terms. So, when we have a very abstract concept written, and it has to be translated down into something which is doable, and that is where importance of goals lies, because if you are not well strategically planning for your goals, then through these goals you are going to give an expression of your vision and mission. So, that is very the connection between all these three things. So, and that is important because it helps the organization its purpose of existing and devise strategies for achieving its goals. Now, when we are talking of why these are important for the organization, in order to, this is like a self search exercise for the organization. If I do not know what are my vision, mission of the organization, what are the goals that I need to achieve, so then I cannot know how I need to perform in order to achieve that particular goal, and what are the expected outcomes, what will be my input and what will be my throughput process. So, as like vision and mission are formulated by top management, and goals are then objectives are translated on the basis of these by the various units. So, sometimes it may happen like there is a gap of understanding, as we told, what the top management formulates and what the organizational unit formulate out of this may sometimes there may be a gap in understanding. If not, it is approach where like appreciative inquiry is done. All people like the vision mission, though we understand it is a something which is formulated by the top management, but have they considered the viewpoints of the other employees also, taken a bottom up approach in terms of appreciative inquiry, in terms of how the employees have visualized where their organization will be going, how they, where do they want to see their organization. If it is a shared goal setting, then there is no discrepancy may happen between what the top management sees, visualizes, and what the units understand. If there is a gap of understanding, lack of communication, difference in mindset, these discrepancies may happen. So, it is very important for a joint understanding, shared understanding of the vision, mission, and the goals of what the organization is visualizing for itself, and what the departments and the individual things, like what the top management is thinking. The role of performance management is very important over here, because performance management is that system. Performance management is that system which helps in the alignment of the strategic goals of the organization with the individual goals of the people working in different organizational units in an organization. So, through a proper performance management system, the organization's goals are translated down into each of the departmental goals, and each of the departmental goals are then again translated into group goals present, and in the group also individual goals. So, all the goals get connected and aligned with each other. If this is not done properly, then what happens? There may be a lot of gaps of understanding in what I understand to be contributing to a better performance and what my department understands or the organization as a whole understands. Knowledge regarding jobs. Before performance for any job is evaluated, it is very important that the job is well understood, and it is in terms of what constitutes the job. And for that, the process through which we do it is called job analysis. Job analysis is a process of identifying the key components of a job, and if you do not know like what needs to be done, and then how it can be evaluated. Now, if we understand there is a clear link between this, when you talk of performance management is the alignment of the goals of the organization with the departmental goals and the individual goals, and the roles that the role incumbent is going to take up in the organization. Because when you talk of job analysis, the first step in the job analysis process is to get this connection of how this job needs to be defined properly. What will be the description of the job, so that it is going to connect with the objectives of the department and the objectives of the organization. So, we have to understand the components of the job, and in order to perform that, like what are the requirements of that job, and corresponding to it, if these are the job requirements, then what are the nature of the employees required in terms of knowledge, skill, abilities, attitudes and other attributes, which they will make them a better role incumbent who can do justice to a particular role. The job analysis can be conducted through observations, it can be given through off-shelf questionnaires, and it can be conducted through interviews also. Like Let us do a job analysis of a salesperson's job. So, what are the key constituents of a salesperson's job? First, it is selling, generating leads, meeting customers regularly, service selling, anything else? So, you have to think of. So, what we are doing here, we are listing of a salesperson's job and the different components that the person needs to do. And if we are going to do it, then what happens, like after we have done this job analysis, suppose like we have to do taken up these components, there could be other components also. Now, we have to describe each of these components properly. We have to describe each of these components properly. Like if these are the key constituents that makes up a salesman's job, then what selling, we have written here in one word, but we have to elaborate on each of these. Selling means what? What if done? What activities if done? What all target if achieved? We understand that the person is selling properly. Similarly, generating leads. What all if done? What activities if done? We will understand the person is generating leads. Meeting customers regularly. So, should like if the person is only meeting customers regularly, but nothing is happening out of it, nobody is buying whatever he is selling. So, should we consider he is a good salesperson or not? And service selling. So, there could be other components also, but for each of them we have to define the activities required. What all activities the person are doing as a part of this. What all activities the person is doing as a part of this. And to do those activities, again, what are the kind of personal qualities in terms of education, in terms of personality, in terms of competencies the persons will require, or like who will be the role incumbents. So, this will give you a requirement of the job analysis. Also, what may so happen, these are the like factors, different constituents of salesman job. The priority of these may vary according to the nature of the organization. For something, maybe selling is important, but for another salesperson, according to the job role that is given, maybe generating leads is important for that person. Because maybe if you want to grow, if you want to increase your customer base in future, if you want to get more loyal customers in future, maybe generating leads, meeting customers regularly, service selling, these are going to become more important for you. Depends on what is your vision, how you want to see yourself in future, and how you want to see yourself in future depends again how good you have done your analysis of what is your competitive environment, what you want to do in order to sustain yourself in the business, and for that which component of the job is important. So, in that way you have to move back and forth in asking the WH questions, which are going to show you the correct lead of the job, different components which are there in the job, which one is more important. Performance management activities, there are like as per William Deming. So, the performance management process consists of 4 major activities which are very basic to it, which is plan, act, monitor and review. We are going to discuss each of these in details. Planning is all about deciding what is to be done and how. When you talk of act, what needs to be done to make the plans formulated a reality? Monitor, carrying out regular checks to make sure things are progressing as per plans, and reviewing, comparing what was decided with the actual outcomes and taking steps to correct deviations. So, when we talk of performance management process, it more or less has these steps, like in terms of performance planning, performance execution, performance assessment, performance review, performance renewal and recontracting. Let us have a look into each of these in details. When we talk of performance planning, it is the first step in performance management process. So, as we were telling, like proper planning is very important. It is important for setting the performance expectations and goals for individuals in line with the overall objectives of the organization. It helps to explain what the employees are expected to do to accomplish their jobs successfully. But to do this, again we need to understand, like to do this, it is important to understand, like if you have to look into the overall objectives of the organization, then the vision, mission of the organization may be very clearly defined and the goal set for it. Sometimes we find that the vision, mission of companies are not very well stated. The employees, they do not know what are the vision, mission of the organization, what the organization exists for and what it wants to become. So, these may be problematic scenarios where the people do not know what they are existing for and what they are heading towards and what is their purpose of existence. So, when we talk of the overall objectives of an organization, having a clear concept, well written vision, mission statement, which is not very ambiguous in nature, is very important. In the future modules, when we will be doing some exercises, maybe we will take up exercises on these also. In simple words, performance plans explain what employees are expected to do to accomplish their jobs successfully. So, if the employees are not knowing like what are expected of them, this is an unguided situation where they will start doing maybe random things and think like we are meeting the expectations. So, when when the clear expectations are written, it gives them a guidance of what to do and what not to do. Performance planning is important for implementing an effective performance system. So, hence, employees and supervisors must sit together and decide what needs to be done and how it is to be done. So, this is important in the sense the word like employees and supervisors must sit together and decide what needs to be done and how it is to be done. This line is very important in the sense it should be a shared performance plan. As we were already discussing in the last modules, like if we are setting certain expectations, it should not be unrealistic expectation setting where the employees feel suffocated under the expectations, because every persons have their limitations in terms of maybe their abilities, in terms of their interests, maybe the constraints in life also. It is not only their abilities or their interests, but there could be certain constraints in their life which may like act as a like blockade for the person to work in a certain way, because though the person has to live with those situations, life situations, constraints. So, now if I set very high expectations without considering these things, maybe the person will not be able to give the best to the demands of the job. So, the employees and the supervisors must sit together and decide what needs to be done and how it is to be done. So, and for that some critical performance elements must be identified for successful performance planning. So, critical means these are the elements which need to be done. Maybe if there are 10 elements in the job, you cannot avoid doing some 2-3 of them, because that defines the job itself and very critical for performing. So, some critical performance elements may be identified for successful performance planning, and it should include both results and behaviors and development plan. So, it is not only the results and behaviors which are expected of the employees, but how the employee can develop from the present competency level to the future one. Results and behaviors. Results dictate what the employees must produce for satisfactory performance in a job. Results take into consideration the key accountabilities, the point of importance over here, the key accountabilities associated with the job, which is usually summarized in job description. So, whenever we are talking of performance management, we are talking of shared goal setting, we are talking of alignment of individuals' goals with the organizations and departmental goals, but along with this shared goal settings also comes increase in responsibility and accountability. So, whenever we are talking of the results, we are more focused on what all the employee will be accountable for. Objective specifications also forms an important part. So, the results as objectives specify important and measurable outcomes associated with the job. So, as we discussed earlier also, what cannot be measured cannot be managed. So, if you are talking of the expectations in clear terms of activities that we need to do, so and the most important when we are talking of critical measures for some critical performance measures. So, 2-3 very vital activities that you need to do, and what are the like measurable quantities of it that which we can see that you have achieved. These are important things that needs to be discussed when we are talking of the results itself. The terms cannot be vague, it cannot be under not measurable terms. So, if you feel like some results have been achieved, so we have to come down to the questions: what if done, what quantity if achieved, what target if reached will show that the employee has achieved certain result. When you talk of behaviors, so what happens, sometimes it may not be possible to measure everything by quantified results. So, it is the change in behavior which is looked into, like like for in a case of a sales employee who is more involved in retaining existing customers, could not produce more of a fresh sales. So, in case he is not able to produce more of fresh cells, and this is no way means he is a poor sales executive. So, which would have like would have become if only new cells are taken into account. So, this is very important. So, when we are talking in the last slide also, if you remember when we were talking of defining, if you are talking of when we are talking of defining who is a good salesperson, we talked of selling, generating leads, meeting customers regularly, service selling, and some others are the qualities of a good salesperson. So, in case like here the example that we are discussing, if the person is involved in retaining existing customers, and in doing so like he is not been able to produce more fresh sales, but the parameters that are set for measuring who is a good salesperson, and we have just taken only new sales generated as the result, that will define whether you are a good salesperson or not. Maybe I am not doing justice to this person. So, while setting the results and behaviors together should define the performance of the individual, and like the efforts taken by the employees should also be recognized properly, and the what that person has focused on. Development plan. So, it is very important for supervisors and employees together to devise a development plan before the review exercise is conducted. A development plan which majorly focus on the areas that needs to be developed with the employee, and setting concrete goals in identifying areas of improvement, like what I need to develop, what I need to improve, what if done will show I have improved on certain things. So, these are the references for this book, like we have taken this from these two books, which you can read in details further for understanding the details of the chapter. Any queries, please write it in the forum. We are there to answer to all your queries. Thank you.